Yeah, if you want whiskey that you have to wear boots to drink, this is not it. I
Wear
mean,
boots?
You could swim this naked. But there are some Scotches.
What did you just say? Welcome back to Drinking with Craig and Roger. I'm Craig.
I'm Roger.
We have talked a lot about malt whiskey, single malt whiskey, and other things.
And bourbons, too.
Yeah, and bourbon would be considered a grain whiskey, right? Because corn is a grain.
Well, yeah,
and
but
it's
it
made
has
in a column still.
Special characteristics.
U.S., grain whiskey, which includes some malt and stuff like that. So that's the majority of what's out there. However, what we haven't spent very much time on is a whole separate category of single grain whiskeys that we're going to explore a little bit today.
Yeah, as we talked about in our video on Scotch whiskey, the blends are a blend of malt whiskeys and grain whiskeys.
Yeah.
The grain whiskeys, the primary grain is generally corn or maize, if you want to call it that. And there's a little bit of barley malt added because the enzymes help it.
Sometimes rice also, I read, I think.
Yeah, and generally,
Or wheat.
It's not aged all that long because it doesn't take long to mature. But
And it's also distilled in a column still, right?
most of it is.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's very, very light and doesn't have a lot of flavor. But today we want to talk about some grain whiskeys that have been treated specially to create a different
Kind of show off what grain whiskey can be, other than just a blend filler.
Right. Well, and we
Because grain whiskey is cheaper. It's cheaper to make. It's considerably cheaper to make grain whiskey than it is to make malt whiskey.
Absolutely.
It's quicker. The base materials cost less, and
it's not a batch process. You don't have to stop and start all the time. You just let it go.
Yeah.
But you can do things. Probably 60% of the taste of a whiskey has to do with the barrel. And here we have an Irish single grain whiskey.
Okay. Yep.
Glen Gasson.
I think it's called Glendalough.
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 Okay, the accent is on the second syllable. All right. But it is in two barrels. It's been double barrel aged. So it was in one barrel for a while and then a second barrel to add some flavor to it. So we've got this one.
Okay, and they're saying that this one is bourbon barrels and then finished in sherry barrels, which is always nice.
So it should give it a nice taste.
Yeah.
And then we have Teeling,
Yeah.
which is an Irish whiskey. Both of these are Irish whiskeys. They're close to Dublin where they're produced.
Yep, Dublin. I've been to Teeling. It's like a large craft distillery in Dublin.
They do other things besides single grains.
Oh yeah, they do way. Yeah, this is the only single grain thing I've seen from them.
Yeah, and this one has been aged in special barrels.
Yeah, this is a California Cabernet wine barrel.
Yeah, that should give it a nice little a taste to the...
And this has had the proper treatment. It's 46% alcohol, non-chill filtered, no artificial color. So this should be a pretty nice treatment.
Let's pick up something with the barrel. You can tell from the color.
Yeah. And then we've got, this is making its third appearance on our channel.
That's because we don't like it enough to drink it a lot.
That's true. We have a Scotch single grain, 27 years aged, most likely in a sherry barrel, an independent bottling of Cameron Bridge. So this is a single grain Scotch whiskey. And then just to get our bearings and compare against what you would typically see, we have a single malt Irish whiskey, the ever delightful and
Bushmill.
widely available Bushmill's 10-year single malt. So this should give us a good idea of what we're dealing with.
Now, you remember that I've always said that, single grain whiskeys are fully mature after 3-4 years.
Yeah, you said after about 3-4 years you're not going to add
And
much.
then you have a 27-year-old here. So we need to compare these non-age statements, which are probably 4 to 8 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
With the one that's 27 years old, as far as what we like. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let us start with the double barrel aged one.
Here we go, Glendalough. I've only had one other thing. Oh, now right out of the gate, this is really interesting. Right out of the gate, I'm smelling a similarity to what I know and recognize from this Scotch. You get a hint of salon, like kind of heated up hair. I do. Wow, that is unexpected and interesting.
I don't
That
taste.
good, huh?
I don't taste heated up hair there.
I kind of get the note, but it's very minor. Wow, this is nice. It's a sweet, light, somewhat simple flavor. It has almost a remarkably small finish. It's like it's a very just kind of goes, poof, you know.
Try it again.
Okay.
It's what you're expecting in the finish, but it continues on, that little taste. I do think, that the sherry barrels are influencing a lot of the taste in
Absolutely.
this.
Absolutely. And probably what I'm picking up on that note is that sort of lightly sulfured sherry barrel note. So it's finished in the sherry barrels.
It's still very light.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I don't know
like
how
this,
old
though.
it is, but it's very smooth.
I like this. It's really smooth and light. I mean, this is... And so what you're normally going to get with single grain, to my knowledge, grain whiskey, at least in Irish, is going to be shortbread cookie. Sort of like a shortbread cookie, sort of buttery, icing type of notes. Very sweet, very light.
I can taste some butter in this,
Yeah.
but
It's very much like a shortbread cookie.
well, it has that
Oof.
that sherry taste after it. But
This
anyway,
is not... I actually really like this one.
this is nice.
How
This
much
is-
does this one cost? Do you remember?
It's around $32, I think.
There's a lot worse whiskey for $32 than this. Interesting. I'm impressed, actually.
Well, they've added a lot of taste to the grain whiskey,
Yeah.
which is probably distilled around 150, 160 proof, and
Yeah.
then brought down. But it doesn't match any of these other kind of proof things. But they've done that, and the barrels have added a lot of nice taste to it.
It has. I mean, I really like it. This is one of what I would say, the smoothest whiskeys I've had.
It's good.
It's really good. I'm impressed. Very
Shall we
nice.
move on?
Yes.
Teeling.
Now, Teeling makes some interesting stuff. I said I went there to the distillery in Dublin
Yeah.
and went to the tasting room and had a number of their things. I will say I'm not the biggest fan of Teeling, at least at this moment, because they have a lot of... I mean, it's a craft distillery in a way, and they put in a lot of other flavors, at least to the majority of what I've had, but I have not had their single grain. So this should be interesting.
Right.
Let's give it a whirl. The nose does not have any of that salon type of smell. In fact, it has almost no smell at all.
Well, there's something there.
The flavor is very similar, though.
Oh, no, it doesn't have quite the fuzz that the other one has from two different barrels. This one is sort of singular, and it's, I think, the bourbon barrel, right?
I like this. No, so this one is interesting. So this is the one that's in an ex-California Cabernet Sauvignon wine barrel.
Okay.
I will say I don't think I'm getting a ton of the barrel influence necessarily.
Well, no, but it doesn't taste like a grain whiskey to me.
Okay. It says these barrels impart a distinctive red berry and delicate spice character. The spice definitely. So one of the biggest differences between this two, what is the proof on this guy? 42%. So this one is 46 and it has a significantly bigger body, but notably a much, much longer finish.
Oh, yeah.
I really like the finish on this guy. It is a sweet, delicate spice and it just keeps lingering. I really like it.
Oh, yeah.
I am surprised and impressed so far. In fact, I like both of these more than some of the lower priced regular offerings I've seen from Glendalough, which tasted young and kind of hot. These are not too young or hot. I really like these. Damn. Okay, what I'm describing as a salon type of smell and taste is apparent. So maybe that is just a note of grain whiskey, a single grain whiskey.
It's there, but it's not really overpowering.
No.
It's an undertone.
Of these three, it's got to be the lowest, of course, and delightful. But again, almost no finish. Now we're gonna get to the beast.
Oh, now this is
We're
the
very familiar with
27-year-old guy, the ancient guy
Ancient.
who crawls in, barely pulling himself up.
And it
has
strength,
the same taste, same smell to it. The same
but
grain
amplified, very much amplified.
smell. Well, it has that.
It's much stronger. This is 51.5%.
Well, that explains for how strong the taste, the smell is, but it's just still.
It also has a little bit of mustiness to it compared to the others. Interesting. All right, here we go. Down the hatch.
Down the hatch.
God, it's still bad. It's bad every time I try it. You have to drink it for a while. It still doesn't taste bad.
It's like all the tastes of these other two intensified to the point where they're not very good anymore.
Agreed.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Any of the... Yeah, I mean... It's not the worst thing in the world, but it is not great.
I'm not going to say that this is the difference between an Irish single grain and a Scottish single grain.
Yeah.
But I think it's the difference between a single grain which has been aged 7 to 8 years and one which has been overaged to 27.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's still not... Once you get used to it, it's not too bad. But I think this one is $100. This one is about $50. This one's in the 30s somewhere.
I would buy 3 of these for one of those or 2 of these for one of those.
All day long.
All day long. Every time, without thinking.
Agree. But this is an independent bottling. It's kind of a one-off.
Of course, I would have to taste this first before I did that.
Yeah, which we can't legally do in our stores here in Georgia, and that kind of sucks. But hey, it is what
well,
it is.
it's really a lot thicker, that's for sure. But it's also a lot higher in proof.
Yeah, once you get used to it, it's still pretty good. But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's just amplified of these. Now, to get a real feel for the difference, so this is the Bushmill 10-year single malt. So this is all malted barley.
I think that Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, and the rest of Ireland is a separate country.
Okay.
You don't think that makes any difference, do you?
No, just whiskey.
That's right. That's what I think.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's a difference between Bushmills and Jameson, the two biggest there.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I love this. Fantastic value for what you get. 10-year single malt. I think it stands toe-to-toe with Green Spot, which is normally like 70. It's a little more than half the price of Green Spot. So, anyway, let's give it a try.
Okay. Oh, it's
massive
a nice
difference.
Oh, it's a nice pear smell to it.
Fruit, so much fruit.
Oh, man.
Pear, green apple.
Yeah. Oh, it's a really nice nose.
You know what? It has a hint of the Four Loko green apple that we tried in an earlier video.
Well, green apple is nice if it's small, part of it. If it's the dominant thing, maybe it's not so good.
What a bouquet of fruit!
Oh, that is lovely.
Lovely. Floral, honey, fruit. And this is the lowest proof. This is 40%, the lowest proof of all these. And it's just great. You gotta get... I mean, it's true. But, I mean, the Bushmills is fantastic, right?
I'm going to drink the Bushmills, yeah.
All right.
You can have the rest of those.
I think that says it all. So, you know what I think I might do? I think I might make my own little blend here. Give me one of your empty glasses. I'm gonna, not that one. It smells like burnt hair. There we go. I'm gonna create my own little blend. So I'm gonna take the Bushmills, single malt, and then I'm gonna take some of this Glendalough,
that's nice stuff.
Single grain, and I made my own blended Irish whiskey.
You need to put some of that in there too.
Well, then the grain's gonna all right, hang on. Then I've got to do a little more of that.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I got to do a little bit more of the Bushmills to compensate. There we go.
Yeah, just leave out the Scottish one.
Now, it's going to need, this is definitely going to need a little time to integrate and settle down, because that's a...
Scotch integrates and settles down a lot better than people do.
That's true. A lot quicker.
That's right. And yeah, so...
Might take people 25, 30 years.
Sometimes centuries.
I'm saying 2 to 3 minutes on...
centuries.
on
Centuries.
whiskey. Centuries?
Yeah. Sometimes millennia.
Who's living that long except for Leto Atreides in
No one lives
God
that-
Emperor of Dune?
No one lives that long, but their descendants do. So it goes from generation to generation.
Ramble much?
Yeah.
Here we go. So, all right, let's give this a try here in my
Cheers.
blend. Cheers. Let's see how this blend is. It's good. It's good.
Try that. That's just the...
I know.
That's
I know.
The
It's-
Bushmill malt.
It's better. Just the Bushmills is better. Ugh.
It all depends on what you're wanting.
Yes.
But the Bushmills single malt
Oh.
has more malty flavor. It's a rounder body. And
just beautiful.
It doesn't have a lot of the complex overtones that the other one does. That's from these different barrels and whatever
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. So what's our takeaway here?
Well, it looks like as long as whiskey, whether it's from the single grain or malt, has been distilled and aged well
Yeah.
for a while, it's going to be a nice drink no matter what it is.
Yeah.
I think you have to be very careful if something has been aged 20, 30, or 40 years, whether this is going to be a good drink. It might be a terrific investment if you don't want to drink it because of its rarity value.
Okay.
But it's, as far as drinking, I don't know that that's going to be something you would want, you know.
Yeah.
And it depends,
Yeah.
you know, on how you want to spend your money. You know. But I think we can find a lot of stuff for $50 or less, which is really a nice drink.
That's
And we've
the truth.
done that here.
Yeah, that's the truth.
So-
I think my takeaway is single grain can be really nice. It just depends what you're looking for. If you want a flavor bomb with all kinds of complexity and a big body, you're not going to get it in a single grain. And if you try to give it that, it might backfire because you need to have an impeccable barrel because it's going to overtake.
Yeah, and you can probably find one barrel that's going to do that.
Yeah.
But to find a few hundred barrels that will do it,
Yeah.
which is what you have to do if you're going to have something that you're going to send all over the world.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. Now this one was one of 630 bottles. That's all they got out of here.
Okay, well,
And
that means it was just one barrel.
But we agree this was a fail. So
Well, it's not a fail, but it's certainly not
It's a
worth
fail.
what they price.
we've used it 3 times as an example of something that's bad.
And we will have it around to use it again because we don't want to drink it.
You know, in our next video that we use it, it'll probably be at pretty much the same level. But it's great for instructional use, for comparison, and you know. So I get it now, though. I am really surprised that some of the notes that I get in here that are just so amplified and negative are also present here, but just to a much lower degree, and it works.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's really interesting. It's been an eye opener.
Well, yeah, it's what I've
But
been saying for
I
a long
think-
time.
yeah.
You know, wine and whiskey is like people, like a living organism.
Uh huh.
You know, if it's too young, it's not good enough. It's
Yeah.
not mature.
Okay.
There's a nice range there where it's mature and it's working really well.
Yeah.
And then it begins to decline. You know.
It can. Now, There are,
If
just
this-
like with people, there
if this
are a
gets
few
to 50
exceptions.
years old, I'll bet this 27-year-old is going to be dead. You know.
Oh, well, yeah, that's way too old.
Yeah.
But just like with people, there are a few standouts and
And
exceptions
absolutely,
that could be just beautiful at 40 years.
absolutely.
But not all of them.
You have to be very careful with them.
Yes,
And
very
the
careful.
people who do this have to, whatever. But
Yeah.
you know, at my tender age of only 77, and Craig's age of only 41, approaching 42, you know, we are still doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So,
That's right.
If
We're
we
still
can-
in the sweet
if
spot.
we
We're
can-
not to the not to this old particular
if
yet.
we can find whiskey that fits in that sweet spot, we're good. So,
Yeah.
until next time,
Cheers.